Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 80 of the Joomla Beat podcast, the podcast all about Joomla, where you get to learn about designing, developing, managing, and marketing your Joomla website. And on this podcast episode, I have a couple of really cool guests joining me on the show. But before we get into that, just a couple of announcements. If you haven't heard of the Joomla Beat podcast before, make sure you check out the website at joomlabe.at, and there you can find all of the other audio podcasts and all the video podcasts as well. So hi and welcome to everyone around the world. It is 12 a.m. midnight here in Sydney, Australia. Extremely early, 5 a.m. for you, Matt.
Yes.
And 1-ish p.m. sometime in the afternoon for you, Rob.
Yeah.
Right?
I got the short straw.
You got the nice time. Anyway, I have the team here, some of the developers and the volunteer team behind the new Joomla Extension Directory. And Rob and Hugh Messenger, which hopefully he'll be joining us in a few moments, were part of the team that developed a lot of the back-end and front-end aspects of the new Joomla Extension Directory, and Matt is the team leader of the Joomla Extension Directory as well, and he played a key part in a lot of the aspects as well. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Hi, welcome. Yeah, thanks for having us.
So let's start off with a really quick introductory round, and Matt, would you like to start off? Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved with Joomla. I know you were on the podcast in episode 49, but for those that don't know, give a little introductory round and how you discovered Joomla.
I kind of ran into Joomla working on a hobby project website for just trying to build a quick and easy website. Found Joomla, fell in love with it, and just started building websites and then eventually opened up a business. That's pretty much it.
And you grew that business, and what is that business called?
It's Natural Selection Web Design.
Awesome, excellent. And you're based in Seattle now, right?
Yes.
Excellent, awesome. And what about yourself, Rob?
Well, we started. I was working for a company, and we were looking for a CMS to replace our in-house one, and that was way back in 2004, I think. So at the time it was Mambo, so we got on board doing Mambo, and then I built Mosforms, which is the precursor to Fabrik, in 2005. So I've been a developer of Joomla and whatnot for the last 10 years or so.
That's a very long time. I had no idea the beginnings of Fabrik were that old. I had absolutely no idea. So it's nice to know that it's been back since the very beginning days. Excellent, awesome. And looks like Hugh has just joined us as well. Welcome, Hugh.
Hey.
Would you like to give us a little bit of an introduction of your background, how you discovered Joomla, and then we'll get into some of these questions and all these excellent interview questions that have been submitted as well about the Joomla Extension Directory.
Yeah, first, excuse me, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I just woke up. I was coding until about 3 or 4 in the morning. So, I came into Joomla entirely by accident. I don't know, what was it, Rob? About 5 years ago we met.
A little longer now, mate. I think. 7
Oh,
or 8.
yeah, I guess it was 6 or 7 years ago. I was building the site for my wife and needed more than Joomla could provide. I needed, a little app builder, and I found Fabrik, and it kind of combined a lot of the things I've been doing over the last 30 or 35 years in computing, to do with user interface and bringing together a lot of disciplines. Fabrik requires a lot of knowledge of everything. You have to understand the language, the operating system, UIs, databases, just it pulls everything together in a way that a lot of other products don't, and it's just an incredible challenge to work on. And Rob was kind of the Fabrik at that point was, it had just really started evolving from the original Moz forms into an application builder, and Rob was kind of struggling to keep things going support-wise and keep development. And I just saw a lot of people asking questions on the forums that I could answer, so I started answering questions and getting into coding. And after a couple of years of doing that, I kind of wound up part of Fabrik, and here I am. I've lost track of how many years we've been doing it, to be honest. But
that's awesome. So that's your introduction to it all.
It's a challenge every day, and it's interesting and it's fun, and I still get a buzz out of doing it every day, so I keep doing it.
Awesome. So just to backtrack a little bit and explain a couple of things for the listeners and the audience in general, Rob, could you explain exactly what is Fabrik and explain its potential and powers?
Yeah, so Fabrik is a application builder. So it's similar to a CCK, a content construction kit, but it has a kind of a wider, touches on more things than just content. So it allows you to create front and back end forms, and to then show the form data in list views. There's a really extensive filtering and pre-filtering options for those list views, and also really fine-grained access control. So you can say that this person or this user group can see this column or can do that action. So it's very it's up to your kind of people's imagination what they can build with it. And then we have the usual kind of fields and validation, things like that required for forms. And finally, we have visualizations, so we can take that data that you've collected and put it into a Google map or into a calendar or into a slideshow or a timeline. So there's lots of different ways to show the data you're collecting. So I think we're just about allowing people to easily collect custom data sets and then displaying that in a meaningful way to the front-end user.
Okay, so very complex form builder, and you can do a lot with the data, but probably so listeners and viewers can understand a little bit better, can you come up with a scenario that you could explain, which would be a good case study where you could use Fabrik?
Yeah, sure. There's one of the things you often see people doing it for is for events management. So you have your usual kind of groups of bands, venues, dates where the band's going to play. So you have these individual bits of information. You want to create a relationship between them. So a band is going to play at a certain gig in a certain venue, and you have so all those types of relationships can be modeled with Fabrik without having to know how it works underneath, really. So other things we've seen people using it for is for lost pets. So a database of lost pets. So there's probably not enough demand for a lost pets component in itself, but this person used it to use Fabrik to create their application where they could round up all the lost cats in in their city or whatever. So yeah, I mean it's really up to people's imagination what they can and what they can do with it.
That's a pretty interesting one. Here, go on here.
Yeah, the example, what I was working on last night, somebody came to me earlier in the day. They're a bass fisherman. I live here in the southern United States. Bass fishing's pretty good. They wanted a bass fishing site where they could show where fish had been caught at what times of day and of what weight. So in about 3 hours, we built a site where their members could go in, post where they caught the fish by just pointing to a pin on a map, upload a picture of the fish, give information about the fish, like the weight from a drop-down menu, the species of fish built from a database of fish types that he already had that we could import. So, you know, we can import existing data as well as creating our own. And then from all this, you do that just by selecting the input widgets you want on your form. And then we visualize that data in a searchable visualization of the members could go in, go to the map viz and say, okay, show me all largemouth bass of greater than 3 pounds that were caught between the hours of 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. And the map will just then show you all that information with just pins on the map. We put that together in about 3 hours. I mean,
Fair
that's
enough.
a pretty good example of the power of Fabrik. Another good example I like, just because it's so insane, is the U.S. government actually uses Fabrik to map piracy on the high seas. If you're an insurance company, the U.S. government site that you go to when you're insuring a commercial ship to pass through dangerous waters, so you can see how much piracy there's been off, you know, within 12 miles of the coast of Liberia or whatever, when you're an underwriter and trying to decide the risk. That site is all built in Fabrik. I discovered this quite by accident when I was Googling for piracy on International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Okay, I have to grab these links off you guys afterwards, so please remind me to grab those so I can put them in the show notes. But it sounds like Fabrik's very, very flexible and pretty complex. It can build pretty complex websites as well, so it sounds pretty interesting. I know we've used it to build an invoicing application for a particular client as well, so it's I know some of its potential there too. But I didn't know you could do all that stuff too. It's pretty interesting. But this all led on to another topic, which is our main topic, and that's the new extension directory, the Joomla Extension Directory. So, Matt, I know a request for proposal went out last year or the year before now. I can't remember exactly when. Could you explain a little bit of the process behind the RFP? What were some of the requirements? I know it was a very, very thick document in regards to what the requirements were, and how the process went for the Fabrik team to get involved with the building of the new extension directory.
Sure. It's been probably going on 2 years now. We decided that, you know, it's time to build a new website, and we kind of understood where we were with our current site and limitations. The old site was built on Mosets tree, and it was modified quite extensively over the years, and there was very little to no source control. So when somebody made a change, it just, you really didn't know what they changed. And it's kind of hard when you have a high turnover rate of volunteers, because you don't know what was done and why things were done, and it's impossible to upgrade without causing a mess. So we drafted the request for proposal with all the requirements that we wanted. That was about almost a year process of identifying everything we wanted, getting community feedback, and publishing it. We got 12 proposals, and we narrowed that down to 3 that we thought were the best, and then we conducted interviews and selected Fabrik because they seem to have what we were looking for in the budget we were looking for. That the interview process took probably a month and a half or so, and then it went to OSM for contract negotiations, which took a few months, and here we are today.
It always does take a little bit of time to get through these processes. So we'll basically the plan was to migrate from the Mosets tree over to a whole new platform that was going to be custom developed. What were some of the features that might have been in there? Or that are in there, sorry.
Well, some of the key things we were looking, and what made us realize that there wasn't anything available to do what we wanted out of the box. We wanted to automate a lot of the processes, from review submissions, extension submissions. All of those were manually screened by somebody, and you're talking, around, I think we've averaged 30 to 40 review submissions a day. Extension submissions always average from 2 to 20 a day, and it takes a lot of time to manually check an extension, and that's not even checking a lot of things that we should be checking, could be checking, and will be checking eventually. But with a team of 3 or 4 people, that time adds up quick. So we wanted to automate as much as we could to cut down the amount of time that it takes to run the site. So now we have automated approvals for review submissions and extension submissions. We have a lot of tracking. Trying to think. We overhauled the review system completely. A lot of small things and improvements that really speed up our workflows.
That's pretty cool. What were some of the other challenges in regards to getting it over from the old version to what it is now?
That's probably a good question for Rob.
Yeah, that's quite a big challenge in itself, because the Mosets tree database structure is a bit interesting. So it uses kind of a key pair database for storing custom information. So that really isn't the best way to deal with that. So we had to write an entire component just to take the Mosets tree data, the reviews. There's quite a bit of data there, and shift that into the new system. So the new framework is using Joomla UCM, the Universal Content Model. So that was kind of an interesting thing we had to learn as well, was how to deal with that. So I mean, there's a hell of a lot of work running on the import, and then the import, when you test it, takes a long time to go through all the data. Then you find something's wrong, you have to go back again. So that definitely was one of the harder parts of the project.
How many extensions and reviews were actually being migrated?
The extensions are on about I can't remember now.
8,200, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the reviews. No idea.
Some huge number.
Too many.
I think there was like 17 or so, like 23,000 or something like that. There's a lot of reviews.
Definitely a lot of reviews. Nothing massive, but yeah, manageable, I think, right?
It was in the end, yeah.
Okay. So in regards to the actual development of the extension directory, were you guys using Fabrik, or were you building stuff from scratch using the unified content model? And what sort of methodologies did you guys use in regards to actually building it all?
Yeah, well, it's a separate framework, so it's nothing to do with the Fabrik code base. Because basically it was, as you know, the JED team wanted something that runs fast on a really large website. So we kind of felt that creating something custom was probably a better way to deal with that. So our aim was to have the component that would be able to provide different views, HTML or JSON, which then could be either delivered to the front end or to the back end. So the back end is running on Angular JS, so it's a single page application to deal with all of that. And both the back and front end have a HMVC structure, so a hierarchical MVC. So you can have so on the front end, for example, when you look at your profile, you see your profile, you see a list of your own extensions and a list of your liked extensions. Well, each of those is a hierarchical view within the other. So that was one of the main things we looked at. As for the workflow, we're using Jira to manage the project. So that's the along with Bitbucket for the code. So Jira is quite good for having to kind of almost force you to use kind of an an agile approach to your managing the project. And then we kind of use a Git branching system process, that was put forward by a guy called Vincent Drissen, and it's a really good way of dealing with a project when you've got multiple people working on it. So we have a development branch, a staging branch, and a live branch, and each one of those branches, all through a CI server, gets pushed directly to various sites, so we can actually test at any point the code that we're running.
That sounds like a pretty cool setup with a continuous integration in between all the different servers, and I'll probably have to put up a couple of links to some of these things that you're referencing for the listeners as well. So for those people that don't know, they can look back and actually work out what we're talking about as well. But it would be really cool to actually have a look at some of this back-end stuff, especially this Angular interface in the back-end. Are we allowed to have a look at some of this stuff, guys?
Sure.
So does anyone have it open? And we can do a screen share.
You go through that?
Yeah, I can close some of these out quick. Okay, let's screen share here.
By the way, there's currently 78,220 reviews.
Oh, 78,000?
That's a lot. It's a big number. All right, there we go.
So here's the back end. This is the dashboard we see when we log in. It's kind of designed to get you right where you need to be, depending on what your role is within the team. We have people that check reviews, people that work on tickets, and people that work on extensions, on submissions, because not all of them make it through the auto approval process because of different reasons. It's pretty easy to get around. It's sped up a lot for us, and there's still a lot of improvements that are in the pipeline. You can see everything moves pretty quickly, which is a big improvement, and is kind of hard when you're working with a website that has millions of viewers a month.
Millions of viewers. How much traffic does the Joomla Extension Directory get at the moment?
It kind of averages anywhere from like a 1.5 to 3 million a month.
Some big numbers. Some decent numbers. So yeah, definitely needed a custom component to manage all of this and all the different aspects. Pretty impressive.
To give you an idea, for anybody that manages Linux systems, we're currently running, how many cores did we end up with? 24 cores, 64 gig of memory.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious hardware.
System runs at a load average during peak times of between 8 and 10, which if you manage any kind of server should give you an idea of just how much load is going on it during peak times.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't work on the servers. So
That's
Matt,
what
you're
it's
just
for.
scrolling through a couple of things there. What are you scrolling through on your screen at the moment?
These are the pages to manage extensions. It pretty much puts everything in one place within tabs. Makes it kind of easy to get to. You can see the reviews against the extension, the information, content, pricing and download information. We can quickly find the other extensions by that developer if they have some. And here we can run the JED checker tool, which scans the extension for all the most common problems, which is an area that we want to improve in the future. And that's pretty much it for managing extensions. So the way the process works is, you come to the front end, you fill out your form with your new extension, hit the submit button, and if you've done everything correctly, your extension would most likely be listed within 5 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
In the
Great,
past,
that's a huge improvement.
in the past, you were looking at maybe 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, if you're lucky, and over a holiday period, I know everyone, all the volunteers, takes time off, so that process could take even longer.
Yes.
Wow, very impressive changes there. So a lot of that is all automated, so we can get things up and running a lot quicker. And as extension developers want, they want to get their products out to the market, and the extension directory is such a huge source of traffic and income for a lot of developers as well. So that's impressive. That's really cool, guys.
Yeah, and it's really paid off already with the amount of time it takes to manage this site. I mean, myself, I used to spend probably 8 to 10 hours a week just screening extensions, and it's quite time consuming. A lot of times it was an entire Saturday. But now, now it's, there's only a handful that need to be checked a week because they all pretty much make it through the process the first time.
So what are you doing with all your spare time now, Matt?
Working on my business.
Having a life, I think.
Yeah, that too. Getting out of the house.
Awesome. So who actually designed the back-end interface for all of the admin area, for example?
That would have been me.
Lucky you.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, there's a whole load of wireframing that went on, and discussions about what the team needed to do and how they needed to do it. And it's also been as with all these things, you put something up, and then there's a discussion that goes on about actually when people start coming to use it, actually this would be better like that, or it'd be really useful if on the user screen you could see an audit of what that user had done on the site previously. So so it's a nice process to go through with the JED team and have this kind of interaction where you're improving the site for everybody.
Pretty cool. And what about the design of the front end?
That was guys from a company called Futuron who are based in Holland. So they did with them. I did a lot of the research. So we were looking at various other CMS sites for downloads, and also App Store sites. So like the Google App Store, and we kind of made a great big chart of what we thought was good, what worked, what didn't work, why that worked. So trying to take all that information into account when we were designing. And I think one of the biggest controversies is the search versus categories section. And we did really think that search would be a better way to find what you're looking for than just going through categories. I think some people agree, some people disagree, but that was the decision that we decided to take with it. The search is massively improved compared to the old site, and I think we can still improve it further. But beforehand, if you search for something like K2, you wouldn't find K2. You'd find 600 extensions to mention K2, and then at the bottom you'd find K2. So there's now it will come up first. So there's definitely big improvements that we've made on the search. Yeah.
Cool. So in regards to future improvements and other things that are going to be done, what's next on the list?
Well, all the little bugs in the we need fixing.
We have no bugs. What do you mean bugs? There's undocumented features. Well, I think one of the most important things is listening to users. I mean, you can design a front end until you're blue in the face, but it's not until you actually put it in front of users that you really find out what works, what doesn't, what people like, what people really hate. And
yeah,
we're obviously listening to the users. We're not immediately saying, okay, yeah, we'll do that, but we're certainly listening to people, making notes, and I'm sure there will be a tweak or two. Then, of course, there was a few things that just kind of fell through the cracks, like was the RSS feed of recent extensions, and there's a few things that we frankly forgot that are definitely being added, but we see a lot of criticism on a daily basis of what doesn't work, so we're definitely listening to people, and I'm sure there will be an iteration through potential changes.
Over time. That was actually one of the...
Not everything that everybody wants will go in there, but the most commonly requested features will probably make it in there, I'm sure.
That was actually one of the questions that came in. And if anyone does have any questions, they can click on the little Q&A button in the top right-hand corner and submit a question for the team here as well. But yes, that was one of the questions from Thomas Spick. He asked if the RSS feed for recently updated extensions was going to be added back, and hopefully it will.
Yeah, yes. We've got the RSS views working. It's just a question of setting up the filter for recently updated. So that should be in very, very soon.
Cool. Fantastic. And if anyone else isn't on the Google event page and they can't click on the Q&A question application, they can also tweet in a question. Just tweet it at JoomlaBeat, and I'll collate it in the questions list for everyone here at the closer to the end of the show when I'll ask those questions.
Yep.
So next off here, it sounds like you guys will be maintaining the Joomla Extension Directory for quite a bit of time, an extended period of time of some sort. How long are you guys going to be around improving things for the JED?
Good question. Well, contractually, it was for a month after the site went live, but I think we're going to be there longer, just because there's things that we feel we should add in that weren't added in for the launch date. So we don't really have we haven't really set ourselves a deadline when we're not going to work on it or something. So depends if Matt unlocks us our chains.
Yes, it sounds like a lot of projects that we work on are like a little bit like that as well. So let's get into some of these questions that some of these listeners have put in, and there's actually quite a few questions, and they just keep flooding in now that I've actually announced that. One person has asked here, where'd it go? The new JED seems a little bit slow at times. Is this a server issue, or is it a load issue? What's the problem with it here, or is it a caching issue of some sort?
Caching can be improved, definitely. We've only done it on minimal caching for just extension pages at the moment. We haven't had any specific reports of slow loading in the bug tracker, so it's not something that I personally have noticed or having examined. I don't know if Matt could see any more than that about.
I know over the past few weeks we've been turning the CDN on and off, trying to fix things. But other than that, I really haven't seen any significant performance issues. That server that's running that site is the biggest server I think that the Joomla project has right now. So it shouldn't be a performance issue, really.
MySQL is getting a little log jammed at times. There's a few improvements I'm looking at there, but it's one of those things you don't want to rush into. So I'm kind of the server guy. So I'm just going through the stage of collecting data and looking at the bottlenecks and working on potential approaches for that. And as with any large Joomla site, most of the bottlenecks are in the database, and it's just a case of doing a little tweaking and tuning on MySQL. I mean, it's running during peak times at about 600 plus queries a second, so
wow.
That goes up. You know, I've seen it run at almost 1,000 queries a second, which gives you an idea of how powerful the machine is. And I'm pretty sure I can get some reasonable improvements out of MySQL, but like I said, it's not something you want to rush into. We have a staging server that I'm playing around with MySQL on at the moment and working on some of my theories on how to improve things.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the caching is because you're running searches on the data, it's not actually often you're going to end up with hitting the cache. You know, if you're looking for a component named Fabrik that runs on Joomla 3 and has a demo, well, that's one query, and how many people are going to run the same query? So quite often, if you're caching on list views, it's quite difficult because you end up you just don't hit that the cache file very often. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's nice to know that if anything can be done, that you guys are working on it as well. Yep. Okay. So the next question here, I don't know if you can see that on your screen there, guys, but this is from Helvicio. And he asks, the back end, was it built with Fabrik? And you'd like to answer that one, just to clarify that one there, Rob?
No, it's the library that we built for the JED, so it's an Angular application running in the admin. It's not
completely custom.
Yep.
Okay.
It obviously pulls on a lot of our experience from Fabrik, and it has a lot of the ideas and concepts that the next generation of Fabrik will use. So it's been interesting to develop as it gave us an opportunity to flex a lot of those development muscles and ideas that we've had about the next generation of Fabrik. So in many ways, it's kind of a prototype for what Fabrik will be, but it is entirely custom. I don't think it has a single line of code actually taken from Fabrik, but a lot of the ideas and concepts that we've had over the years have gone into it.
It's going to be very interesting then to see the next version of Fabrik come out with an Angular backend and all sorts of other crazy things that you decide to put in there too. Okay, we have another question here from David Attard from Dark Creations. He asks, was there any UX testing and done with the website, and if so, how much or how extensive was it? And was it targeted towards Joomla end users? Sorry.
Was it targeted towards Joomla end users? Yeah, I mean, we did paper card testing with a user group right at the beginning. So when we were going through...
Sorry, Rob, you're cutting out there. You might have to just check your connection. Oh dear, we've lost him.
Oh no, I can hear you.
Oh no, you're back.
Hello?
You're back. You're back.
Okay, so did you not hear any of that, I guess?
You might want to start again. Yeah.
Okay, so we did from right from the beginning. We had paper card testing for the layouts we were considering, and we got feedback from users at that point. And then we obviously got feedback from the JED team itself once we'd decided on a route we wanted to take. And then the site was open for possibly 2 months for people to take a look at before it went live. So we got a lot of useful feedback there as well about various parts of the site. So yes, there was user testing done. And we did get proper users to test it. Yeah.
Cool, fantastic. Close that one off. Now this question here was, I think, was sent to me via. No, it was posted on the comments as well. And this was in the initial project. VEL, or the Vulnerable Extensions List, was planning to be integrated into the JED. And what was the status of this, and is it still going to be done? Thanks for all the effort that you put into the new JED.
The parts in the RFP that we put in there for the VEL really were only to include some APIs so we could easily, give information to the VEL team and they could send information back. Another part that was in there that we left really vague was, and might have been construed as integrating the VEL into the JED, was when we started the RFP, there were some talks with a third-party company for scanning extensions for vulnerabilities, and those talks kind of just initially started at the time that we put the RFP together. So we left it kind of vague as to that whole area, and all we really wanted was kind of a place to plug it in if it ever got to that point. And unfortunately, those talks kind of fell through the floor and were sidelined due to other reasons beyond our control. But it's something that I hope we can get back to and try to implement, because what the company was offering was quite a good deal for Joomla in terms of improving security all around.
Interesting. So if I was to scan my extensions, what company would I approach to do this?
There's a few out there, and I don't want to advertise any because I don't know which one's better than the next. Or so the one we were looking at, they really didn't have a Joomla-specific scanning tool, and they were willing to sit down and create one for us specifically and help us integrate it into this new site So right from the get-go, when you submit your extension, it would get scanned for vulnerabilities, and every time you uploaded a new version, it would get scanned. But hopefully we can get them back on the line and move that forward at some point.
Now, I'm talking about those vulnerabilities. So when someone submits a new extension, they have to submit a copy of it as well, so it can be scanned. But what happens when their extension on their own repository, where they host it on their website, gets hacked? And is there any plans for the JED to actually host these particular files that the developers are producing, and using the JED as the repository for the extensions itself?
Well,
we
do you
have
want-
no desire.
Do you want me to answer that one?
Sure.
You asked about improvements. That's one of the things I'm actually working on now, which wasn't in the RFP, which we have some tasks that run overnight that check for XML updates on sites, and one of the improvements I'm looking at there is there's obviously a disconnect here between somebody uploads an extension and sure, we check it at that point, but then we really have no guarantee that what users are downloading from the third-party site is. So I'm looking at checksumming apps as they're uploaded for testing, and then rechecksumming the download link on a regular basis, and then if checksums disagree, then automatically unlisting it until the developer runs that version up through an upload. But ideally, in my opinion, they should be hosted with the JED, but that's something that is a very difficult decision to make, because it obviously changes the shape of Joomla and the JED and people's sites, and it's one of those things that's under discussion, but the only way I can think of doing it at the moment that doesn't completely break the mold is to, as I say, check some things as they're submitted, and then on a regular basis recheck what's actually up for download on the site.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the downloads is that some sites require registration to download,
Yeah.
or they're part of a subscription service. So those URLs directly to the file aren't always available.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a very difficult problem to solve given the current way that the JED and downloads work. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, and I haven't really discussed this at much length with the JED team, but it's something I've been working on for the last 3 or 4 weeks, trying to come up with ways of doing that keeps everybody happy. But it's obviously a concern. You know, I've downloaded apps from people's sites that have been absolutely riddled with
malware
and yet they went through the JED test. You know, it's a difficult issue, and I think it's one of those things that the community needs to get together and decide what it wants to do about this. It's not a decision that we can make just on our own. But it's definitely, you know, on our list of things that we're looking about and concerned about,
okay.
and looking for ways to handle.
Maybe I shouldn't have brought that one up yet.
Well, no, it's a valid question.
All right. So we've probably got enough time for maybe one or two more questions. And I've got a question here from Thomas again. And he's asking, what are you using for caching? Is it a custom cache or is it caching extension? What is it exactly? Oh, and thanks for getting the RSS back too.
Halfway there. We're just using the standard view cache that Joomla provides. So when you go to the, it's right. If I go to the controller, it's going to check first of all if there's a cached version of that view and show that. So there's nothing. It works the same way that com content does.
Very cool.
And then I'm not sure what cache system is running behind the server, whether it's file based or memcache. I can't remember.
Do you know, Hugh?
File-based, I think.
We actually turned memcache off. It was causing more problems than it was solving. As Rob said, there's very little that can actually really be cached, and mostly the caching I'm working on is MySQL wise, but yeah, and I know Rob has some interesting stuff in the works. Angular-wise, but that's not going in this iteration, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
for the back-end one, we're going to be reducing the number of HTTP requests. So have a persistent memory state for the application. So if you go to a list view, then go to details view, it's going to load the information from the list view rather than requesting another hit on the server, and then when you get back to that list view, you'll get the same. The data will be loaded from the cache again. But that's something I'm playing with. It's not really ready for deployment yet.
Okay, awesome. Now, just one last question. This one came from Twitter from Swing Shoes Dance. I'm not really sure what exactly it's referring to, but he's asking why some of the Joomla Extension Directory images are not showing. So this might be something in regards to the swap over from Mosets tree to the new system, and some of the images aren't showing. Can you guys work that one out, exactly what he's asking?
Yeah, I think he's asking about the actually in the Joomla admin console when you go to manage your extensions. You've got the install from web application, and obviously the team they were using the.
Rob, you're breaking up again. Sorry.
Oh, have you lost me?
Losing you. It's not getting any better.
Okay. Do you want to ask
All right. I think he passed that one to you, Matt.
He was talking about the install from web, the Joomla admin on everybody's website. It was, using the old database, tying into the old database to parse out all the descriptions and images and whatnot through another server and then to the back end of your website. Those guys that wrote that plugin for Joomla are working on updating it because now we're outputting APIs for everything. That there's no need to tap into the database directly like it was. So the problem's known. It's being worked on by those guys. When they'll be finished, I really couldn't say. It was a project that was done outside of the JED team.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So lots of little things still in the pipeline, and lots of improvements coming along, and huge thank you for all your time and efforts, guys, in getting it where it is now. I find it's a huge improvement, and I know a lot of our users who browse through the Joomla Extension Directory have found it a lot more useful and a lot more user-friendly as well. So thank you for all your time and effort in regards to all of that.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
And thank you for all your time for getting up extremely early and joining me on this podcast episode as well.
You're welcome.
So until next time, everyone, I think we're just reaching our hour mark. So until next time, everyone, please keep your websites safe and secure. Make sure you keep them backed up. And for the next Google Hangout episode, make sure you jump onto the Joomla Beat website where you can find out more details of who I'll have on next week. Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going back to sleep now.